Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Kwakudash. That's the Paleo Hebrew of our Lord and Savior, who the world calls Jesus of Christ. So, we're going to just go over Isaiah 19 and 1, because, a lot of things is taking place in the earth. They just had this tsunami that hit off the Russian coast, and, the Lord say that, in the latter days, that, He will give us signs and warnings, okay? Earthquakes, nations rising up against nations, and we seeing these things, so we definitely through the Spirit know that the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is on His way, and a lot of our people don't want to or don't believe that, or don't believe in this truth. So let's just read Isaiah 19. We'll start at verse 1. It says, "The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud." So the Lord is coming back, in His chariots, okay, and this is how the Lord is gonna make His return, with the angels. And it say, "And shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at His presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother." Okay, and this is what we're seeing. We're seeing all these nations, gearing up for war, and we're seeing these we see Babylon just in total confusion. Okay, and you see, a lot of fighting going on between these politicians and, things like that. So, this is what the Lord is telling us in the scriptures, that, hey, it might be a civil war coming, okay? And, a lot of people going to be caught off guard out here, and going to lose their life too, because they're not in the truth of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, okay? And He said, "And everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols, and the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, said the Lord of hosts." See that? So Yahushua is coming back, to rule in righteousness. Okay, and He, by Hashem Yahushua, He's gonna balance the scale. Because right now, man, we see a lot of things just off course, man. A lot of things is not right, and a lot of our people just don't believe in the truth, So, as this place crumbles, a lot of people, a lot of the Israelites gonna go down with this place, because they don't want to, take heed to what the Lord is saying in the last days, speaking through His first the prophets, and His teachers, and like-minded brothers that speaking this truth, So the Lord is, like I say, that the Lord is gonna do some bad things in the last days, man, to those who don't want to take heed. So let's go to because the Lord really ain't dealing with nobody but the Israelites, His people that were scattered to the four corners of the earth. Let's go to Psalm 78 and 5 right quick. Let's go to Psalm 78 and 5. So, judgment really gonna start off with the Lord people, with our people, the Israelites. You know, not want to take heed to this truth. This Psalm 78 and 5, it says, "For he established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children." So, this words and truth supposed to be being taught, and the commandments supposed to be, taught to our children. But our people is not taking heed to that. They think that Yahushua died on the cross for them to continue, in folly, and that's not what Yahushua died on the cross on. He's he's the Lord of the 12 tribes of Israel. It says that the generations to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in God power, and not forget the works of power, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, and a stubborn and rebellious generations. And this is what this generation is, our people rebellious, a rebellious generation. It said a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. See that? So, the Lord, just speaking about our people, this our people rebellious against the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. They don't want to keep the law and do what the Lord say do, So let's go down. Let's read down a little more. It says, "The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of God, and refused to walk in his law, and forgot his works and his wonders that he had showed them. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as an heap. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He clave the rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink as out of the great depths. He brought streams also out of the rock, and caused waters to run down like rivers. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And they tempted power in their heart, which is the mind, by asking meat for their lust. Yea, they spake against power. They said, Can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Behold, he smote the rock, and the waters gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? Therefore the Lord Yahweh heard this, and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they believed not in power, and trusted not in his salvation. And this is our people, you see. And in the last days, our people is mocking and scoffing against the truth. Okay? In the same way back then is now, That's why the Most High saying that, there's nothing new under the sun. You see? So, the same way our people was being rebellious, hard-headed, stubborn back then, after the Lord did all this for them, they still was unappreciative, and it's the same way today. So this is why the Lord is gonna come back and destroy uh, uh, half of His people. You know, the 2/3 of His people. Okay, because our people they refuse to listen. You know, it's always us getting on our people but it's our people who judgment gonna start with. Because the Lord told y'all, you know, to seek Him in the last days. So you're supposed to be working out your salvation with fear and trembling, you know. But our people don't fear the Most High Yahweh. They think the Lord is all love, and then if something bad happen, so like about that. Then something bad happened, you know. Then you know they wanna try to seek the Lord. And then in seeking the Lord, you're still seeking the wrong God because you're seeking for Jesus, a false God, an idol God, not the true living power, Yahweh, and His Son, Yahushua. So this is why Hosea says, let's go to Hosea. Let's see, Hosea. Let's go to Hosea 4:6. This is why the Lord say in Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. See that? So, you know, you can't play around with the Most High Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua. And you know, in the last days, you know, and you know, not take heed. It said, that's verse 7 says, as they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore I will charge their glory into shame. And this is why we're in these conditions that we're in. You see, we had the glory, you know, but we lost that, you know, by disobeying the Most High. You know, so He stripped us from there and brought us into shame. Now we living in the ghettos. You know, we you know, don't have the things that we supposed to have. You know, because we being disobedient. So the other nations are over us, looking at us like, damn, you know, we messed up. It say they eat up the sin of my people, and they set their heart on their iniquity. See? So these people, you know, they rejoice when they see us like this, you know, in these conditions. You see? As long as we in sin, you know, they can have their way with us, you know, especially when we not serving the true power, Yahweh, you know, you know, and you know, these you know, these other nations take advantage of that. So let's read verse 8 again. It says, they eat up the sin of my people, and they set their heart on their iniquity. And there shall be like people, like priests, and I will punish them for their ways and reward them for their doings. See that? So this is why we get judged, you know. And the Lord end up, you know, taking us out of here. So I want to share that with you guys, you know, let's stay prayed up in the last days. You know, walk in that light, you know, keep the commandments to the best of your ability. I'll be back with the next one. Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushua, that one is the great millstone. Peace.